The morning light filtered through the tall windows of Windsor Castle, casting long shadows across the ancient stone floors. King Charles stood in his private study, his weathered hands clasping a delicate china teacup as steam rose from the Earl Grey within. At 75, the weight of the crown had settled upon his shoulders like a familiar but heavy cloak, and today felt particularly significant. Outside, the grounds were alive with preparation. Palace staff moved with practiced efficiency, arranging flowers and adjusting seating for what would be an important family gathering. It was Catherine's birthday, and Charles had insisted on hosting an intimate celebration despite the recent challenges the royal family had faced. The king's eyes often found themselves drawn to the photograph on his mahogany desk, a candid shot from the previous Christmas showing Catherine laughing with his grandchildren, her radiant smile infectious even in the still image. She had become more than just his daughter-in-law over the years. She had become the steady heartbeat of their family during turbulent times. Camilla entered the study quietly, her presence immediately warming the room. She had learned to read her husband's moods with remarkable accuracy, and today she sensed the deep affection and concern that occupied his thoughts. "The preparations are nearly complete," she said softly, placing a gentle hand on his arm. "Catherine will be so touched by all of this." Charles nodded, setting down his teacup with deliberate care. The porcelain made a soft clink against the saucer, a sound that seemed to echo his thoughts. "She's been through so much this year," he murmured, his voice carrying the weight of unspoken worries. "I want her to know how much she means to this family, to the monarchy, to me personally." The queen consort watched her husband with understanding eyes. She had witnessed his growing paternal bond with Catherine, how he had come to see her not just as William's wife but as a daughter he had never had. The transformation in their relationship over the years had been beautiful to observe, from formal courtesy to genuine warmth and mutual respect. "She knows," Camilla assured him, her voice gentle but firm. "The way you've supported her through everything, especially during her difficult moments this year, hasn't gone unnoticed. You've been exactly the father figure she needed." The king's expression softened as he recalled the private conversations he'd shared with Catherine during her health challenges. The vulnerability she had shown him, the trust she had placed in his guidance, had deepened their bond beyond royal protocol into something genuinely familial. As if summoned by their conversation, a soft knock interrupted their moment. "Your Majesty," came the familiar voice of his private secretary through the heavy oak door. "The Princess of Wales has arrived." Charles felt his heart lift immediately. Despite the formal announcement, he knew that behind that door waited not just the Princess of Wales, but Catherine, the young woman who had brought such joy and stability to his son's life, and by extension to his own. Camilla moved toward the window, her silk dress rustling softly against the morning air. From this vantage point, she could see the black car that had just pulled into the courtyard, its polished surface reflecting the ancient stones of the castle walls. Soon Catherine would step out, probably looking elegant despite any tiredness she might be carrying from recent months. "Shall I have them bring her up?" Charles asked, though his tone suggested he was already certain of the answer. His anticipation was barely contained, like a father eagerly awaiting the arrival of a beloved child. The queen consort turned back toward him, noting the brightness that had entered his eyes. This was the Charles she loved most, not the formal monarch, but the man capable of deep personal connection and genuine care. "Yes," she said with a warm smile, "but perhaps give her a moment to settle. You know how she likes to ensure she looks perfect before seeing family." Outside, the sounds of arrival continued, car doors closing, muted conversations between security personnel, the gentle bustle of a royal residence receiving an important guest. The castle seemed to come alive with Catherine's presence, as it always did when she visited. Charles moved to his desk, straightening papers that didn't need straightening, a nervous habit he'd developed when emotions ran particularly deep. Today was about more than a birthday celebration. It was about acknowledging the strength Catherine had shown, the grace with which she had handled personal challenges while maintaining her public duties. "I've been thinking," he said to Camilla, his voice thoughtful, "about how proud I am of the woman she's become, not just as a royal but as a person. The way she's handled everything with such dignity." The queen consort nodded knowingly, She had watched Catherine's evolution from a somewhat nervous young woman, thrust into the spotlight, to a confident, compassionate leader who had truly found her place within the royal family. The journey hadn't always been easy, but Catherine's resilience had been remarkable. The morning sun continued its ascent, filling the study with golden light that seemed to promise good things for the day ahead. Soon, Charles would see Catherine's face, would have the chance to express in person the paternal pride and affection that had been growing in his heart. Today would be special, not because of royal protocol or public expectation, but because of the genuine love that bound their family together. Catherine stepped through the ornate entrance of Windsor Castle, her heels clicking softly against the marble floor as she was escorted through the familiar corridors. Despite having walked these halls countless times, she still felt a flutter of anticipation when visiting Charles privately. Their relationship had evolved so beautifully over the years, transforming from formal obligation to genuine warmth. The princess carried herself with the practiced grace that had become second nature, but those who knew her well might have noticed the slight tension in her shoulders. The past months had tested her in ways she never could have anticipated when she first married into the royal family. Yet here she was, resilient and determined to maintain the strength that everyone seemed to draw from her presence. Her personal protection officer maintained a respectful distance as they approached the king's private quarters. The castle staff they passed offered warm smiles and subtle nods of acknowledgement, their affection for her evident even in these brief moments. Catherine had earned their respect not through royal decree, but through consistent kindness and genuine interest in their lives. "The king is expecting you in his study." "Your Royal Highness," the private secretary informed her with a gentle smile. The woman had served the royal household for over 2 decades and had witnessed Catherine's transformation from a nervous newcomer to a confident member of the family. Catherine paused before the study door, taking a moment to compose herself. She had learned early in her royal journey that these private moments with Charles were precious opportunities for honest conversation, away from the constant scrutiny of public life. Their bond had deepened particularly during her recent health challenges, when his paternal concern had shown her a side of the king that few were privileged to see. The heavy door opened to reveal Charles standing by the window, his silhouette framed against the morning light. He turned immediately upon hearing her enter, and his face lit up with unmistakable joy. "Catherine, my dear," he said, his voice warm with genuine affection as he moved toward her. "Your Majesty," she replied with a graceful curtsy, though her own smile betrayed the fondness that had grown between them. Even in private, certain protocols remained, but they had learned to infuse these formal moments with real emotion. "Oh, none of that today," Charles said gently, reaching out to take her hands in his. "Today you're simply family, here to celebrate with us." His eyes searched her face with the caring attention of a father, looking for signs of how she was truly feeling beyond the public facade she wore so expertly. Camilla approached from where she had been arranging flowers near the window seat. "Catherine, darling, you look absolutely radiant," she said with genuine warmth, though she too was observing carefully. The queen consort had become skilled at reading between the lines of royal composure, particularly when it came to the family members she had grown to love. The princess accepted Camilla's embrace gratefully. Over the years, what had begun as a somewhat awkward relationship had blossomed into mutual respect and affection. Camilla's steady support during difficult times had not gone unnoticed, and Catherine had come to appreciate the older woman's wisdom and discretion. "Thank you both for organizing this," Catherine said, settling into the comfortable chair Charles gestured toward. "It means more than you know to have family time away from everything else." Her voice carried a subtle note that both Charles and Camilla recognized, the slight weariness that came from months of maintaining strength for everyone around her. Charles took his seat across from her, his eyes never leaving her face. "How are you really feeling, my dear?" he asked with the directness that their relationship now allowed. Gone were the days of carefully diplomatic conversation. They had earned the right to speak honestly with each other. Catherine's composure wavered slightly at the genuine concern in his voice. "Some days are better than others," she admitted quietly, "but having family support makes all the difference. William has been wonderful, of course, but knowing that you and Camilla are there as well." She trailed off, emotion threatening to overcome her characteristic self-control. The king leaned forward slightly, his paternal instincts fully engaged. "You must never hesitate to reach out," he said firmly but gently. "This family supports each other, always. That's not just royal duty, Catherine. That's personal commitment." Camilla moved to pour tea from the elegant service that had been prepared, her movements graceful and purposeful. She had learned that sometimes the most supportive thing she could do was provide these small comforts while allowing the deeper conversations to flow naturally between Charles and Catherine. "I've been thinking lately about strength," Catherine continued, accepting the delicate cup Camilla offered, "about how we're all supposed to be pillars for others. But sometimes pillars need support too." Her words hung in the air, revealing a vulnerability that she rarely allowed others to see. Charles nodded thoughtfully, understanding completely the weight of always being expected to be strong for others. "That's precisely why family matters so much," he replied. "In here, away from the cameras and the expectations, we can be honest about our struggles and draw strength from each other." The morning light continued to filter through the tall windows, creating an atmosphere of intimacy and safety. This was what Catherine treasured most about these private moments with Charles and Camilla: the opportunity to simply be human rather than royal, to acknowledge fears and uncertainties without judgment. "Your birthday celebration today," Charles continued, "is about more than marking another year. It's about celebrating the remarkable woman you've become and acknowledging the challenges you've faced with such grace." His voice carried the weight of deep admiration and paternal pride. Catherine felt tears prick at her eyes, moved by the sincerity in his words. These were the moments that sustained her through the more difficult aspects of royal life, knowing that beneath all the protocol and public service, there was real love and genuine family connection. The conversation in Charles's study was interrupted by a gentle knock, followed by the entrance of William, their children, and several other family members. The room suddenly filled with the warm chaos of family gathering, transforming the intimate space into something altogether more festive. "Papa," Princess Charlotte called out, running toward Charles with the uninhibited joy that only grandchildren could bring. Her grandfather's face transformed completely as he bent down to embrace her, the formal monarch disappearing entirely in favor of the doting grandfather. Prince George followed at a more measured pace, but his smile was equally bright as he approached his grandfather and grandmother. Louis, still young enough to be wonderfully unpredictable, had made a beeline for Catherine, climbing into her lap with the absolute confidence of a child who knew he was loved unconditionally. William approached more slowly, his eyes immediately finding Catherine's face and reading the subtle signs that told him how the morning conversation had been both comforting and emotional. He placed a gentle hand on her shoulder as he greeted his father and stepmother, the gesture speaking volumes about the support system that surrounded Catherine. "I hope we're not interrupting," William said to his father, though his tone suggested he knew they were welcome. The Prince of Wales had learned to read the dynamics of these family moments, understanding when his wife needed the buffer of their children's presence to lighten the emotional weight of deeper conversations. Charles stood, still holding Charlotte's hand, his joy at having his family gathered together radiating throughout the room. "Perfect timing," he assured his son, though his eyes lingered on Catherine, noting how naturally she had embraced Louis and how her face had brightened at the children's arrival. Camilla watched the scene unfold with quiet satisfaction. She had positioned herself slightly away from the central group, instinctively understanding that this moment belonged primarily to the direct bloodline family. Her role was important but different. She was the supportive presence, the one who ensured everyone felt comfortable and loved without needing to be at the center of attention. "Granny Camilla, look what I made for Mama Catherine's birthday," Princess Charlotte announced, pulling a carefully wrapped package from the small bag she'd been carrying. The child's excitement was infectious, and her use of Granny Camilla and Mama Catherine spoke to the beautiful family dynamics that had evolved naturally over time. Catherine's eyes misted as she accepted the gift from Charlotte, the simple gesture touching her deeply. "Should I open it now?" she asked, her voice soft with emotion. The princess nodded enthusiastically, bouncing slightly on her toes with anticipation. Inside the wrapping was a small, handmade card with a drawing that unmistakably depicted Catherine surrounded by hearts and flowers. The childish handwriting declared, "Best Mama in the World," in crayon letters that wandered charmingly across the page. Below the message, Charlotte had carefully written, Love, Charlotte, with the E backwards in the endearing way of children still mastering their letters. It's absolutely perfect, Catherine whispered, pulling Charlotte close for a hug. I'll treasure this always. The sincerity in her voice was unmistakable, and Charles felt his own emotion rising as he watched the tender exchange between his granddaughter and daughter-in-law. Prince George, not to be outdone by his sister, approached with his own offering, a small potted plant he had helped the castle gardeners prepare. We picked this because it has strong roots, he explained seriously, his young face earnest with the importance of his message. Papa said strong roots help things grow even when it's difficult. The metaphor was not lost on the adults in the room, and William's eyes met his father's with grateful understanding. Charles had clearly been working with the children to help them express their love and support in ways that went beyond simple gifts. Strong roots, Catherine repeated thoughtfully, accepting the plant with the same reverence she had shown Charlotte's card. That's exactly what our family gives each other, isn't it? She looked around the room, her gaze touching each family member with obvious affection. Louis, meanwhile, had discovered the birthday cake that had been discreetly placed on a side table, and his excited pointing and babbling drew everyone's attention to the elegant creation decorated with delicate sugar flowers and Catherine's favorite colors. Someone has excellent timing, Camilla observed with amusement, moving toward Louis to gently redirect his attention before small hands could investigate the cake too thoroughly. Her interaction with the youngest family member was natural and loving, showing how completely she had embraced her role as step-grandmother. The room filled with laughter as the family gathered around the cake, the formal atmosphere of the morning completely transformed by the children's presence and excitement. Charles watched it all with deep contentment, seeing how Catherine's spirits had lifted with her children nearby, how naturally the family dynamics flowed when they were all together. Before we begin the official celebration, Charles said, raising his hand gently to capture everyone's attention, I wanted to say something to Catherine. The room quieted, even the children sensing the importance of the moment. William stepped closer to Catherine, his protective instincts and deep love for his wife evident in his posture. The past months had tested them both, but moments like this reminded him why family support was so crucial to their ability to serve the country while maintaining their personal bonds. Charles looked directly at Catherine, his eyes warm with paternal affection and deep respect. The words he was about to speak had been forming in his heart throughout their earlier conversation, growing stronger as he watched her interact with her children and saw the love that surrounded her in this room. The morning light streaming through the windows seemed to pause, as if even nature understood that something significant was about to be expressed in this intimate family gathering. Charles took a step toward Catherine, his expression carrying the weight of words that had been building in his heart for months. The room seemed to hold its breath as family members sensed the significance of what was about to unfold. Even young Louis had settled quietly in Catherine's arms, as if understanding that something important was happening. Catherine, the king began, his voice steady but filled with unmistakable emotion, this past year has shown us all what true strength looks like. You have faced challenges that would have overwhelmed many, yet you have done so with a grace and dignity that has inspired not just our family, but the entire nation. William's hand found Catherine's free one, squeezing gently as his own eyes began to glisten with emotion. He had watched his wife navigate the most difficult period of her life, while continuing to be an exemplary mother and royal family member, and hearing his father acknowledge her strength meant everything to him. But beyond your public service, Charles continued, taking another step closer, you have become something precious to me personally. You are no longer just my daughter-in-law, Catherine. You are the daughter I never had, and I want you to know how proud I am to call you family. The words hung in the air like a benediction, and Catherine felt tears spill over despite her attempt to maintain composure. The formal barriers that had once existed between them had completely dissolved, replaced by genuine familial love that transcended royal protocol. Your Majesty, Catherine began, her voice thick with emotion, but Charles gently raised his hand. Today, I am not your king, he said softly. I am your father-in-law who loves you dearly, who has watched you bloom into an extraordinary woman, mother, and leader. Today I am simply Charles, a man grateful to have you as part of his family. Camilla watched from her position near the window, her own eyes moist with emotion as she witnessed this beautiful moment between her husband and Catherine. She understood the depth of Charles's feelings, having observed his growing paternal bond with Catherine over the years. This public acknowledgement was long overdue, and she felt nothing but joy at seeing it finally expressed. Princess Charlotte tugged gently on Catherine's dress. "Why are you crying, Mama?" she asked with the innocent concern of a child. "Are you sad?" Catherine looked down at her daughter through her tears, then around the room at the family that surrounded her with such love. "No, darling," she whispered, "these are happy tears. Sometimes when people say very kind things, we cry because we're so happy. Like when Papa told me I was his princess?" Charlotte asked with perfect childhood logic, and the room filled with gentle laughter at her sweet understanding. "Exactly like that," Catherine confirmed, kissing the top of her daughter's head while maintaining eye contact with Charles. "When someone tells us we're special to them, it makes our hearts so full that tears come out." George, ever the thoughtful child, approached his grandfather with a serious expression. "Grandpapa, does this mean Mama Catherine is like your daughter now?" he asked, his young mind working to understand the adult emotions swirling around him. Charles knelt down to George's eye level, his face brightening with love for his grandson and joy at the question. "She has been like my daughter for a long time," he explained gently. "Today I just wanted to make sure she knew it, and that everyone else knew it too." The simple honesty of the exchange seemed to settle something in the room, as if the formal acknowledgement of feelings that had been growing for years had finally created space for everyone to breathe more freely. William cleared his throat softly, his own emotion threatening to overwhelm him as he watched his father and wife share this moment. "Dad," he said quietly, "thank you for loving Catherine the way you do. It means everything to both of us to know she has your support, especially during the difficult times." "My boy," Charles replied, rising to place a hand on his son's shoulder. "Supporting Catherine is not a burden or an obligation. It is a privilege. She has brought such joy and stability to our family, and she deserves every bit of love and protection we can offer." Camilla felt a gentle tug in her heart as she watched the scene unfold. Her role in this moment was clear to her: to be present, to witness, to support, but not to intrude upon the profound connection being acknowledged between Charles and Catherine. She had found her own place in this family through patience and understanding, and she recognized that Catherine's position was unique and deserved this special recognition. "I think," Camilla said gently, stepping forward just slightly, "this calls for a proper celebration. Catherine, would you like to cut your birthday cake while we're all feeling so happy and grateful for family?" Her suggestion was perfectly timed, offering a way to honor the emotional significance of the moment while transitioning back to the joyful celebration that the children especially needed. Catherine smiled at her gratefully, recognizing Camilla's wisdom in knowing how to support the family dynamics without overshadowing them. "Yes," Catherine said, wiping her tears and smiling brightly at the children. "Let's celebrate together, all of us as the family we truly are." The shift in energy was immediate and beautiful, as the formal acknowledgement of love gave way to pure familial joy. The cake cutting became a ceremony not just of birthday celebration, but of family bonds officially recognized and strengthened through honest expression of deep affection. As Catherine moved toward the birthday cake, the family naturally arranged themselves around the elegant table. Charles positioned himself directly beside her, his paternal pride evident in every gesture, while William stood protectively on her other side with Louis still nestled in his arms. The children clustered eagerly around the cake, their excitement infectious and pure. Camilla found herself stepping back slightly, not from any sense of exclusion, but from a deep understanding of family dynamics that had taken years to develop. She recognized this as Catherine's moment to be surrounded by the bloodline family, to feel the full weight of their love and acceptance. Her wisdom told her that sometimes the greatest gift was knowing when to provide space for others to shine. The queen consort moved gracefully toward the window, where she could observe the beautiful scene, while giving the family the center stage they deserved. From this vantage point, she could see the genuine joy radiating from every face, the way Charles's paternal instincts had fully emerged, and how Catherine was drinking in the love that surrounded her like someone who had been thirsty for far too long. "Make a wish, Mama," Charlotte encouraged, bouncing on her toes with excitement. The little princess had inherited her mother's intuitive understanding of meaningful moments, somehow sensing that today's celebration carried extra significance beyond a typical birthday. Catherine closed her eyes, holding the moment in her heart. Her wish was simple but profound, for continued health, for her children's happiness, and for the preservation of the family bonds that had sustained her through the most challenging period of her life. When she opened her eyes, she found Charles watching her with such obvious affection that fresh tears threatened. "What did you wish for?" Prince George asked with the curious persistence of a child, causing the adults to laugh softly at his innocent question. "If I tell you, it won't come true," Catherine replied with a gentle smile. "But I will say that I'm grateful for everything I already have, especially all of you." She gestured to encompass the entire family, her gaze lingering meaningfully on Charles, whose emotional support had become such a cornerstone of her strength. As Catherine cut the first piece of cake, Charles leaned closer to speak privately to her. "I want you to know," he said quietly, his words meant for her alone, "that my support for you isn't conditional on circumstances. Whether times are easy or difficult, whether you're facing challenges or celebrating victories, you will always have a father's love from me." The quiet intensity of his words nearly undid Catherine's composure entirely. She had grown up without a father's consistent presence in her adult life, and having Charles fill that role with such genuine care had been an unexpected gift of her marriage to William. "Thank you," she whispered back, her voice barely audible but her gratitude unmistakable. Camilla observed this private exchange from her position by the window, her heart full as she witnessed the depth of connection between her husband and Catherine. There was no jealousy in her observation, only profound satisfaction at seeing Charles express the paternal love that had been growing in his heart for years. This was what family should be: supportive, loving, honest, and unconditional. "Granny Camilla, aren't you going to have cake?" Princess Charlotte called out, noticing that Camilla remained apart from the group. The child's question was innocent, but drew attention to Camilla's self-imposed distance from the central celebration. Before Camilla could respond, Catherine looked up from cutting the cake and immediately understood the situation. "Yes, please join us," Catherine said warmly, her tone making it clear that Camilla's presence was not only welcome but desired. Family celebrations need everyone. The invitation was genuine and immediate, showing Catherine's own emotional intelligence and understanding of family dynamics. She recognized that Camilla's stepping back had been an act of love and respect, but she also knew that true family meant including everyone in the joy. Charles turned toward his wife with a smile that encompassed both appreciation for her sensitivity and invitation for her to join them. "Come, darling," he said, extending his hand toward Camilla. "Catherine is absolutely right. Today is about celebrating family, all of family." Camilla approached the group with genuine warmth, accepting Charles's hand and allowing herself to be drawn back into the circle of celebration. Her brief step back had served its purpose, allowing the direct family their moment of connection, but now it was time to reunite as the complete family unit they had all worked to create. "I was simply admiring the beautiful picture you all made," Camilla explained with characteristic grace. "But I'd love some cake." Her words carried no hint of feeling excluded, only the contentment of someone who understood her place in the family structure and was comfortable with it. William watched the entire exchange with deep appreciation for both women. He had observed over the years how Camilla's wisdom and Catherine's emotional intelligence had worked together to create harmonious family relationships, even in complex situations. Both women understood that love wasn't diminished by being shared, but rather multiplied. "Today has been perfect," Catherine said as Camilla joined their circle, "having everyone here feeling so supported and loved. This is what I'll remember about this birthday, not the cake or the gifts, but this feeling of being completely surrounded by family who cares." The children, meanwhile, had discovered that birthday cake was even more delicious when accompanied by happy adults, and their joyful chatter provided the perfect soundtrack to a moment that would be remembered by everyone present as a turning point in their family relationships. Charles looked around at his gathered family, his son, his daughter-in-law whom he now openly claimed as a daughter, his beloved grandchildren, and his supportive wife who understood the complexities of royal family dynamics better than anyone. This was his legacy. Not just the crown or the institutions, but these relationships built on genuine love and mutual support. As the afternoon progressed, the family naturally moved from the formal study to the more comfortable drawing room, where softer furniture and warmer lighting created an atmosphere perfect for extended conversation and play. The children had claimed a corner near the fireplace, their quiet games providing a gentle backdrop to adult conversation. Catherine found herself seated between Charles and Camilla on an elegant sofa, the physical arrangement somehow symbolizing the emotional support she felt from both of them. The events of the morning had shifted something fundamental in their relationships, creating new depth and openness that felt both surprising and entirely natural. "I've been thinking," Charles said thoughtfully, watching his grandchildren play while keeping Catherine in his peripheral vision, "about legacy and what truly matters. The crown will pass to William and eventually to George, but the real inheritance we leave is the love and support we give each other through life's challenges." His words carried the weight of recent experience, the understanding that had come from watching Catherine face health concerns with such grace, while continuing to fulfill her royal duties and care for her family. The king had learned something profound about strength during those months, that it wasn't about facing difficulties alone, but about accepting love and support when they were offered. Catherine leaned back against the comfortable cushions, finally allowing herself to truly relax for the first time in months. "There were moments," she admitted quietly, "when I wondered if I had the strength to keep going. But knowing that I had family support, real family support, made all the difference." Camilla reached over and gently squeezed Catherine's hand, her touch conveying understanding and solidarity. "We all have moments when we question our strength," she said softly. "But that's precisely when family matters most. You've shown incredible courage, Catherine, but you didn't have to show it alone." The Queen Consort's words carried the weight of her own experience navigating difficult periods in the public eye. She understood better than most the pressure of maintaining composure while dealing with personal challenges, and her admiration for Catherine's handling of recent events was genuine and hard-earned. William had been quietly observing the interactions between the three most important women in his life, marveling at how naturally they had learned to support each other. His father's open claim of Catherine as a daughter had formalized what he had been witnessing for years, the gradual building of genuine familial bonds that transcended mere protocol. "Dad," William said, his voice carrying deep emotion, "watching you love Catherine the way you do, seeing how you've supported her especially during difficult times, means more to me than I can express. You've been exactly the father figure she needed, and the grandfather our children deserve." Charles felt his eyes mist at his son's words. The relationship between father and son had not always been easy, complicated by the pressures of monarchy and the tragedies of the past. But moments like these reminded him that love and understanding could heal old wounds and create new bonds. "Your mother would be so proud," Charles said quietly, his voice catching slightly as he mentioned Diana. "She would love seeing the family Catherine has created with you, the mother she's become, the woman she is. I know Diana would have adored her." The mention of Diana, rather than creating awkwardness, seemed to bless the moment with additional meaning. Catherine's eyes filled with tears, not of sadness but of connection to a legacy of love that extended beyond her own experience into the family history she had inherited through marriage. "I wish she could have met the children," Catherine whispered, "could have seen them playing the way they are now, could have known how loved they are by everyone in this room." Her words spoke to the continuity of love that she was helping to maintain and extend into the next generation. Camilla listened to this exchange with deep understanding, recognizing her unique position in the family dynamic. Her relationship with Diana's memory had evolved over the years into something approaching peace, and she found genuine joy in seeing Catherine honored in a way that Diana would have appreciated. "She would have seen exactly what I see," Camilla said gently. "A wonderful mother, a devoted wife, and a woman who has brought healing and joy to this family. Love doesn't diminish because it's shared with different people. It multiplies and grows stronger." The children, sensing the emotional undertone of the adult conversation, even if they didn't fully understand it, gradually migrated toward the sofa where their parents and grandparents sat. Charlotte climbed into Catherine's lap while George leaned against his grandfather's knee, and Louis toddled over to Camilla, who welcomed him with open arms. "This is what I want them to remember," Catherine said, looking around at her family arranged in comfortable intimacy, not the formal ceremonies or the public duties, but moments like this when we're simply people who love each other deeply. Charles nodded in complete agreement, understanding that beneath all the royal responsibilities and public service, the most important thing they could give the next generation was the security of unconditional family love. The crown was a duty, but this was a gift. "They'll remember," he assured her, "because we'll keep creating moments like this, not just for special occasions, but regularly, consistently, so they always know that no matter what challenges they face in life, they have family who will stand with them." The afternoon light was beginning to fade outside the tall windows, casting the drawing room in the golden glow that made everything seem touched with magic. Inside, a family had found new ways to express old love, and the bonds between them had been strengthened by honesty, vulnerability, and the courage to speak feelings that had been growing in their hearts for years. As evening approached, the family gathering began to naturally wind down. But the emotional connections forged throughout the day had created an atmosphere none of them wanted to abandon too quickly. The children were growing tired but content, their happy exhaustion the result of a day filled with love and attention from their beloved family members. Charles rose from his seat, moving toward the window where the last rays of sunlight were painting the castle grounds in shades of gold and amber. The day had brought unexpected emotional revelations, conversations that had been building for years, and a sense of family completion that he hadn't realized he'd been seeking. "Catherine," he said, turning back toward the room where his family was gathered, "I want you to know that today has been one of the most meaningful days I've experienced as a father and grandfather. Not because of any ceremony or celebration, but because we've been able to speak honestly about love and family." Catherine looked up from where she was gently stroking Charlotte's hair as her daughter dozed against her shoulder. The peaceful contentment on her face reflected the emotional healing that had taken place throughout the day. The sense that she truly belonged not just in the royal family, but in Charles's heart as a cherished daughter. "The feeling is entirely mutual," Catherine replied softly, her voice carrying the depth of emotion that had characterized the entire day. "I came here this morning feeling grateful for your support, but I'm leaving feeling like I truly have a father's love backing me through whatever life brings." Camilla had been quietly observing the scene while helping William gather the children's scattered toys and gifts. Her role throughout the day had been perfectly calibrated, supportive when needed, present when important, and gracefully distant when the direct family needed their private moments. Her understanding of family dynamics had been essential to the day's success. "I think," Camilla said thoughtfully, "that today has shown us all something important about love in families. It's not diminished by being shared or expressed openly. If anything, acknowledging these bonds makes them stronger and more sustaining for everyone." William nodded in agreement as he gathered young Louis into his arms, the toddler's sleepy protests half-hearted as exhaustion overtook his desire to keep playing. "Today has reminded me why family matters so much, especially in our unique circumstances. Knowing that Catherine has this level of support from both of you makes everything else more manageable." The Prince of Wales had learned over the years that the pressures of royal life were best weathered with strong family bonds, and watching his father embrace Catherine so completely as a daughter had filled a need he hadn't fully recognized. His wife deserved this level of love and protection, and seeing it formalized had brought him deep peace. "Before we say goodnight," Charles said, moving closer to where Catherine sat with Charlotte still sleeping against her, "I want to make one final promise. Whatever challenges our family faces in the future, whatever difficulties any of us encounter, we face them together. That's not royal protocol, that's family commitment." The king's words carried the weight of absolute conviction, the promise of a man who had learned through experience the importance of family solidarity. His offer wasn't just emotional support, but the practical backing of someone who understood both the privileges and pressures of their unique positions. Catherine felt tears threaten again at the sincerity in his voice. "Thank you," she whispered, the simple words carrying the weight of profound gratitude. "For loving me, for supporting me, for giving my children such wonderful grandparents, and for making me feel truly part of this family." As the family began to prepare for departure, there was none of the awkwardness that sometimes followed emotional revelations. Instead, the atmosphere was one of completion and satisfaction, as if important things had been said that needed saying. Bonds had been acknowledged that needed recognition, and love had been expressed that needed voice. Camilla approached Catherine as William was organizing their departure, her expression warm and genuine. "Today was beautiful," she said quietly, watching Charles express what he's been feeling for so long, seeing you accept it so gracefully. This is what family should be. The two women embraced with real affection, their relationship having evolved far beyond the polite courtesy of their early interactions. They had learned to appreciate each other's unique contributions to the family, to support each other through challenges and to share in each other's joys. "Thank you," Catherine said, "for understanding today so perfectly, for knowing when to step forward and when to give space. Your wisdom has made all the difference in how our family works together." As the cars were brought around and the children were bundled into coats, Charles walked beside Catherine toward the entrance. "Remember," he said quietly, just for her, "you're not just visiting family when you come here. You're coming home to people who love you unconditionally." The words settled in Catherine's heart like a blessing, the final affirmation of a day that had transformed relationships and strengthened bonds that would sustain them all through whatever the future might bring. As their car pulled away from Windsor Castle, Catherine looked back to see Charles and Camilla standing together in the doorway, their figures silhouetted against the warm light spilling from within. The king watched until the car disappeared from view, then turned to his wife with an expression of deep satisfaction. "Today felt like the completion of something important," he said quietly, "like we've finally become the family we were always meant to be." Camilla smiled, understanding exactly what he meant. "Yes," she agreed, "and it will only grow stronger from here." Together, they walked back into their home, carrying with them the warmth and satisfaction of a day when love had been expressed openly, and family bonds had been strengthened through honest emotion and mutual support.